Biogen falling after hours as Medicare will limit the coverage of Biogen's Alzheimer's drug. It's a controversial drug. This coming from the CMS. It's the home of Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services remain. And really they're saying they're going to limit to randomized control trial participants.
Yeah, and this is a big deal. I mean, for anyone, of course, not in the U.S., I mean, Medicare is basically the primary form of health insurance for people who are retired. So obviously the people who would be most affected by Alzheimer's. So if Medicare is limiting their coverage of this really could potentially limit, I guess, the broader market for this drug.
And the history of this, remember last spring, they seemed to pull off this big feat. They got the approval, even despite some maybe internal frustrations within the FDA, Caroline. And then, of course, some of that backtracking seemed to come out as there were some limits, of course, and some questions really about that drug.
This is a human story. This, of course, is an investment story as well. We want to go to Bob Langreth, who's with us, right, Romain? And he's a key person to be discussing all of it with.
Yeah, and Bob, I do want to start off here quickly, just so we make this clear for our viewers. I mean, this was a pretty expensive drug. It was over 50. I think initially they said it was going to be like
initially
over
50. It was $56,000. They recently lowered it, I think, to $28,000 a year. And basically, Medicare is proposing they will only cover it if you're in a basically a randomized controlled trial and one that the Medicare has to approve. They'll only cover this and similar drugs under these narrow circumstances. So this is definitely an aggressive step by Medicare because the average person won't be able to get it. You'll have to go into a trial, and Medicare's going to have to prove a list of trials. So this is a definite limitation. This is not what Biogen wanted. But it's also not the final end of the story because this is just a preliminary determination. What's going to happen now is going to be lots of lobbying.
Well, yeah, absolutely, Robert. But tell me, what's the rationale behind this? Was there a medical rationale, or was this just a cost rationale that Medicare took?
As I understand it, they're not allowed to take cost into consideration. They say they reviewed the evidence carefully and found that while this is what they say directly, while there may be potential, some promise with this treatment, there's also potential for harm to patients, including headaches, dizziness, falls, and potentially other serious complications. And so you need to weigh that harm and the benefit before getting to a final decision. And that's why they think more studies are needed. Because as you know, Biogen conducted 2 big studies of this drug, whether it slowed cognitive decline, and those produced absolutely contradictory results. So we don't have proof that this drug improves cognitive decline.
This is a draft, as you said. The final approval, I believe, later this spring. What hints does this give us?
Oh, well, this shows us that Medicare is taking, an aggressive steps with this drug. They're not just going to cover it because the FDA, gave it accelerated approval, and that they're going to take aggressive steps to develop more data so we can see, whether this drug and this class of drugs, does in fact improve slow cognitive decline, because that's still a big raging controversy in the Alzheimer's community.